I think the tax the rich conversation needs to mature a little. Because whenever this topic comes up, we get stuck in the same loop. If we tax wealthy people more, they'll just leave. And that argument sounds scary until you actually think about what wealth looks like in the modern economy. See, most ultra-wealthy people don't hold their wealth in cash or vacation homes. They hold it in shares of massive corporations that extract value from the economy at scale. Sure, an individual can move, but the company that depends on millions of consumers, public infrastructure, educated workers, and stable markets, that doesn't just pack a suitcase and disappear, no. Tax havens don't have consumers. They don't have labor markets. They don't have functioning economies large enough to support trillion-dollar corporations. And another uncomfortable truth we don't talk about enough is this. Many of the people extracting the most wealth from a country don't actually live there in the first place. So if the goal of this conversation is simply take more money from the rich people, we're probably going to fail. And worse, we'll end up squeezing the upper middle class instead of the people doing the real damage. The real problem isn't just where wealth ends up, it's how it's created in the first place. If you wait until wealth is already sitting in someone's pocket, then you're already too late. By then, you're fighting an army of lawyers, accountants, and lobbyists whose entire job it is to make sure the rules never catch up. That's why inequality keeps accelerating. The systems used to generate, move, and protect wealth have become incredibly sophisticated. Yet our public conversation is still stuck at, should the tax rate be higher or lower? Here's a key piece people miss. In modern capitalism, enormous companies can dominate entire industries without ever appearing profitable in the first place. Any revenue they reinvest into growth doesn't count as profit and therefore isn't taxed. Now, for small businesses, that's good. We want local businesses to reinvest, hire, and grow. But once a company reaches a certain scale, this becomes a weapon. Amazon is the textbook example of this. For years, Amazon deliberately ran at or near a loss. They undercut prices so aggressively that smaller competitors simply couldn't survive. And once those businesses disappeared, Amazon controlled more of the market. Less competition means more pricing power. More market share means higher projected future earnings. Higher projections drive up share prices. And suddenly, shareholders are becoming absurdly wealthy, even if the company still claims it isn't profitable. That wealth wasn't created by innovation alone. It was created by market dominance. And this isn't new. Walmart used similar strategies decades earlier. And today, Elon Musk may be the most extreme example of all. His net worth has far less to do with actual earnings and far more to do with investor belief. Tesla's price-to-earning ratio is enormous because investors are betting on markets that don't even fully exist yet. Autonomous vehicles, AI integration, future tech that's always just around the corner. So Musk didn't get rich by producing massive profits today. He got rich because people believe he will dominate tomorrow. So what do we do about that? Well, I don't pretend to have a perfect answer. This is complex, but the solution is definitely more complex than just adjusting tax brackets. Here are a couple ideas worth seriously considering. First, limit the ability to borrow against unrealized wealth. When billionaires can use their shares as collateral for massive loans, they can live extravagantly, expand their influence, and avoid taxes entirely without ever selling anything. Musk did this exact thing when he borrowed $15 billion against his shares to buy Twitter. But if the only way to extract value from your company is through a salary or by selling shares, which are both taxable, then wealth actually has to pass through the tax system. Second, place limits on tax-free growth beyond a certain size. At some point, whether it's a revenue threshold or a market share cap, Reinvesting profits to endlessly expand should stop being tax-free. Historically, this isn't radical. Post-war economies used aggressive marginal taxes, antitrust enforcement, and market share limits to prevent exactly this type of concentration. And it worked. Breaking up monopolies and discouraging infinite consolidation creates competition. Competition lowers prices. Competition raises wages. And competition gives workers real choices. When only 3 or 4 companies dominate an industry, workers can't leave. So employers don't have to improve conditions or pay. Now, to be clear, this is not an argument against higher taxes on the wealthy. I've been very open about supporting a return to the marginal tax rates that existed before the 1980s, when inequality was far lower and public systems were properly funded. And no, the rich won't flee en masse. That's a scare tactic. Individuals might move, but their wealth is tied to corporations that depend on stable societies. I'm just not convinced that taxing wealth after the fact is as effective as preventing extreme extraction in the first place. Some people argue that we should tear the whole system down and start over. And you know what? Maybe they're right. But revolutions require massive buy-in. And most people are deeply tied to stability. They have families. They have medical needs. They have responsibilities they can't abandon. Boycotts and consumer pressure can help. And we're seeing that right now, aren't we? But most people can't sustain a total withdrawal from corporate systems indefinitely. So we need long-term vision and short-term steps. Because if those who benefit most from the system actually paid their share or were prevented from extracting so much in the first place, we could fully fund our social safety net without putting yet another burden on working people. And that's the conversation we should be having. Peace out. And if you're not already following me, you should. It's going to be a ride.